All right. Welcome everyone to Venue Visionaries. My name is Gil Freed,
And I'm Matthew Castell.
and we're glad that you could join us today. And we're also glad that we have somebody else that's joining us today, and that is Russ Simmons. And Russell is a legend, and I'm not saying that just because you're here. It's the truth with his work with HOK, which was one of the largest designers of stadiums and arenas for years and years and years, and then he's moved on, and he could tell us a little bit about what he's doing. But I want Russ to share his background, give a little bit of flavor to those that might be listening to show why he is such a critical guest for us to have.
Well, thank you and appreciate the introduction. I will say that, I think a lot of people in a situation like this would look and see a guy with a gray beard and a bald hair and say, well, what does that guy have to contribute to the conversation? And I guess it starts with the idea that if we're having an honest conversation, which is all I'm actually ever interested in having, is that I've made every mistake that a person can make in the management of a public assembly facility. In addition to that, whether it's taking tickets or marketing department or safety and security, I have actually done with my shoes on the ground every job there is to do, all the way through the C-suite in terms of general manager of a building. And so the collective experience, hopefully, expertise and experience leads to wisdom. And while I wasn't smart enough to take advantage of it at the time, hopefully not creating an environment where someone has to make the same mistakes that I suffered through might be a benefit overall. And so my view isn't one that says, hey, look at me, I've been in this business over for almost 45 years, and how great is that? What I'm saying is that if you're not somebody who is interested in being in a learning environment, understanding and appreciating what happened before, and then applying that to the changing context that we face today and in the future, might not be the right business for you. So I've been around a long time. I've done a lot of stuff. And tomorrow I'm looking forward to doing something differently than I did it yesterday.
That's great. Do you want to talk about your work that you're currently doing right now with Venue Solutions?
Sure. So Venue Solutions Group, I was with HOK Sport, which then became Populous. The thing about HOK Sport Populous is that they are the largest sports and entertainment designer in the world. They don't do anything other than sports and entertainment. Their collective, I think the collective catalog of their work supersedes everyone else's work combined, to be candid with you. We had about five offices when I was there for 10 years. I was a senior principal at that firm, and I think they have somewhere near 26 or 28 offices worldwide. They have expanded now into areas like airports and other areas, as they've always been involved in credentialing and special events and bringing a diverse set of expectations and viewpoints into the overall design process was very, very educational for me. I ran a group called the Facility Operations Evaluation and Analysis Group, and while that's a mouthful, it was accurate in terms of the work that we did in collaboration with the designers in Populous. It actually led to the formation of Venue Solutions Group. And if you were to go to our website, you would see, our tagline is creating the science for facility management. And that means that we're not interested in emotion. The human nature is that the first answer, if you're a CFO, the first 11 answers are going to be no. And those are emotional answers. For us, it's the saying is that science trumps emotion. And so we try to stay out of the emotion of those things and really focus on creating and understanding the science that is going to lead to a decision that will be flexible enough and adaptable enough to meet the changing needs of a facility or facility operation or safety, security, or facility condition assessments, whatever it is you're talking about, like on into the future. And that has served us very well. 96% of our customers, 96% of my customers are word of mouth. So that means that while we bid on things from time to time, I enjoy, and our company enjoys sort of a reputation that says, hey, if you're stuck and you can't figure it out, have you talked to VSG? Have you talked to Russ? And I don't think I could be more proud of anything else. And when we get new work, I say to my partners, hey, we've got this new job. Their first question to me is, are we getting paid for it? Because at the end of the day, we've decided that we were going to be a quote friend of the industry. And that means that I answer every call. I don't care if it's 11 o'clock on New Year's Eve. And it doesn't, my first question is how much I'm going to charge you every 6 minutes for what I think. So that works for us. I'm not suggesting that it's better than anybody else. It's just an organic way that we decided to grow our practice, and it has served us very well for now into our 15th year.
Great.
Hey, hey, Russ, you certainly said a couple of things that should resonate with any students listening. Learning from your mistakes and doing every job you can in a sports facility. It's a great way to learn. It's a great way to expand your knowledge level. And the thing I thought that you said is you made it sound easy, but it's a lot harder. Not being emotions based. Sometimes being in a sports facility is a very emotions-based business, especially with probably the clients you deal with, large and small. That must be very hard to manage all the different personalities. Why don't you go through some of your some of the venues that have been success stories and some of the ones that have been a little bit more challenging for you over the course of your career and how you handled that, the emotion and everything that goes with it.
So the first thing I'll tell you is that I came out of the sports management program at the University of Connecticut, and I did an internship. And in some weak moment, they actually hired me to join the organization. Um, the idea of consistent learning comes from the foundation of who you're learning from first. I think that whoever you do an internship with, or wherever your first job is, uh, the idea is to learn as fast as you can and not to be afraid of failing fast. And I think young people today have a lot less pressure on them than maybe I felt back when I started. Meaning, young people today are changing jobs at a cadence that is sort of that I don't understand, but they're less worried about the fact that they've had five jobs in 10 years. They're more worried about what did I learn? What did I take on board? And how does what I learn allow me to better myself or to take advantage of the opportunities in the future, which should translate into getting a lot more experience very, very quickly. So the learning environment to me is critical. The concept, and I know it's colloquial, the idea of fail fast. I mean, if you're going to try something, go all in, try it. If you're going to learn something from it, you might learn more by failing than you learn by succeeding, but not to be afraid of that and to take it forward. With regard to emotion, I think it's human nature. The first if you anybody who suggests change, whether it's the simplest change in a procedure or a large scale change in how an organization looks, there are very few times that that people can embrace change. Opening a new building is a perfect example of where nobody's really afraid. If you come, depending on when you come on to the opening a new building, you may be involved in a whole bunch of conversations that you had no business being involved in. But if your enthusiasm and your attitude is like, hey, I don't know anything about that, but I'll go help. It's actually reflective. I didn't realize it at the time of my own internship. I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't have anything else to do. So I worked in the marketing department during the day, and there was nowhere for me to go. So I worked in the box office at night, and there was still nowhere for me to go. So I broke down chairs, and it actually changed, unbeknownst to me, it changed my reputation internally in the organization. And I developed a reputation, and it's a gift my father gave me, and I really didn't like him for it at the time, which is to never walk by a working man, never walk by somebody who needed a hand, even if it wasn't in your space. So all of a sudden, people start looking at you differently. People start, saying hello in the hallway, and it starts to change your persona. It starts to change your equity within the organization, and that all leads to opportunity. So what you do and how you do it, even at the very initial stages, can be critical in terms of your reputation, because at that point you start to Get people who will stand up for you, who would stand up and say, I'd recommend you to consider a different job, both internally and externally. And so I couldn't emphasize enough how critical sort of your attitude is, and you're checking your medication, that nothing is too good or too low for you to do at any given time. In fact, I don't know where the rest of this conversation is going, but if I had one piece of advice to give that people listening to this should take, is just embrace anything. Just don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of failure, but never ever let somebody walk by somebody who needed help getting a job done, whether it's emptying trash or moving a table or all of the things that you probably thought you left behind when you had your high school job.
So
So
one of the things to build upon that is, yes, give that helping hand, but if you're assigned a given area that you are responsible for, make sure you don't leave it when you're trying to help somebody else and leave it unattended. So
yeah,
I'll
that
throw
applies
that
to a lot of
caveat in
areas in
there.
our business. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great.
But what I would want to get your insight on, I mean, that's great practical knowledge for people working in our space to be proactive and engaged and to try to be as helpful as possible. Are there any other tips that you could suggest for anyone who's going to be a frontline person, whether it's a ticket taker, an usher, a concessionaire, or anybody else, that will make the job that much easier for themselves, but make the experience for the fans that much better as well?
So the first thing I would say is learn the word why, right? The idea of, like, somebody says, go do this. And the answer is, great, I'm going to go do that. But perhaps you could explain to me what we're trying to accomplish. Why are we doing this? What is the outcome that you hope for? Now, both of you are thinking right now with the relationship between a frontline worker and a supervisor, where the ratio in our business is around 1 to 10 nationally. There are extremes in both directions, and that doesn't mean that every second of every day that you can act like a 3-year-old and just say why. It means building up a fundamental understanding of what you're being asked to do, what successful outcome looks like in that, and then understanding the fundamental reasoning behind why you're doing it. Because each time you ask why, and each person you ask that to, who will take the time and invest in you and give you a fundamental answer, builds on your foundation of knowledge and your foundation of experience. And while many people, particularly young people who are doing those frontline jobs as part-time work, they're not really thinking about, the how all of that creates that foundation, not just in the job they're doing, ticket taking or ushers or any of those kinds of jobs, but all of this process starts to set a foundation for you in terms of how you would approach any job that you desire in the future. And by building that foundation, hopefully you're then recognized for your attitude, and you're successfully delivering on the job. And all of a sudden, you might see an opportunity as a supervisor. The problem I have there is, we, as an industry, I think we do a terrible job of training supervisors. We pick supervisors because they were good line staff. This is in concessions, this is in parking, this is in crowd management, this is everywhere. We pick people because they have shown some capability in delivering at that level. But if their model was a supervisor who actually wasn't a good supervisor and never had been appropriately trained on how to manage people and how to convey information, then there's a real good chance that you're going to be a bad supervisor yourself, and therefore like your career is probably winding down sort of right there. So the idea is to associate yourself with people who you feel like are honest in terms of their willingness to invest in you and to make you better, and therefore you can make them shine as well. It's a fundamental flaw in our industry, and I think it curtails the career of a lot of folks. It's one of the reasons why older people who do the same jobs as I'm talking about, frontline staff is one supervisor to 10 people, are more successful at our jobs in general, because they bring maturity, they bring wisdom, they bring experience, and they let the things that just need to go off their shoulders and move on to conduct the job, they let those go and they focus on what they need to do. It's rare that you have to actually take somebody, an older person, and I know I'm generalizing here, so you'll just have to stay with me with that, and actually have to teach them customer service because in their lives, they have experienced bad customer service. They may be experiencing it today, depending on where they trade, and they know what they don't like. And so,
Mhm.
to me, I like young people. I like their energy. I like their enthusiasm. I like their questioning of what we're doing and how are we doing it. The arrogance of thinking that we do this because I said we do it, and there's not a new or a different way to look at it is wrong in my opinion. And if anybody gets caught in that trap, it's a real issue. So I see it as a blend of people that are working together towards a common cause, and everybody should be open to the new ideas.
Russ, talking about training, I think you're right. In our industry, we do a rotten job of training our people. A lot of it, some of the places I've been, it's just because we have a very hectic schedule and it never seems to be the right time to do it. But if you had a client that wanted to put together a training plan for new employees, especially in this day and age where we're going to grab and goes and things that there's less interaction with the customer than there used to be. Everything's automated. How would you go about it? What sort of tips or suggestions would you give them?
So it's funny. I'm going to take them in reverse order. The idea that markets or grab and go and that type of thing gives us a less opportunity to interact with the customer. In my opinion, it actually gives us a more of an opportunity to have a genuine interaction with the customer. So I use just walk out markets, because I'm registered. All I have to do is put my palm, walk in, grab my deal. And when I walk into one of those things and the person that's there or the persons that are there, they make eye contact, they smile, they say, "Hey, can I help you with anything?" The opportunity to say, "No, I'm good," or "Hey, I'm looking for peanut butter crackers." It doesn't matter what it is. That's a much more organic and much more genuine type of experience than if somebody was working a cash register, right? So I think it's all about perspective. So I just really think if I were starting another facility, which I am, by the way. I work on several of these things, and I think I might have opened as many or more new buildings than anybody. Um, I start thinking about onboarding. And now we have tools today that like we never had before. The idea that in onboarding that I can actually communicate good information, solid information, which includes vernacular and definition and all of the basic things I want somebody to know before I actually have to have them come in and start the process of familiarization with the building and uniforming and paperwork and all of that stuff is an amazing head start. It's an amazing head start to say, "Hey, I'm going to talk to you now for 4 straight hours, and I'm going to use a lot of words you've never heard before, or I'm going to use words in a manner that you just can't even imagine." When you bring people in and you start dropping the word vomitory on them, everybody goes like, "What are we talking about here?" Right? And listen, I can go ad nauseum into Greek theater and to spew forth and all of that, but it doesn't make any sense. The idea that I can give someone the basics that they can take at their house online, they can start and stop and be tested out of that, so that when they get to me, they're more prepared to actually take on board information, has a huge value. I think as an industry, we counted on the romance of sport and the romance of entertainment about almost to the point where we felt like we could abuse people. All right. So that's not how things are today, and that's not how they should be. So the idea that that we can start and set expectations before they get there, build on those expectations, and in a perfect world, shadow somebody before they actually get left on their own on a post, and that we've actually been thoughtful about a post order that's clearly written, that and a supervisor who can articulate expectations. There isn't one of us on this call, there isn't one of us listening that doesn't want to know what the expectations are. And in general, for the vast majority of us, we want to meet those expectations. We don't want someone thinking that we're numbskulls. We don't want to do a bad job. but we also have to have the process and the tools and the training to be able to execute it. We have more of those tools today than ever. And I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic because I'm in that business that people are uh, more and more able to utilize those in the cadence of what it takes to get somebody from the paperwork of applying for and bringing in and getting a job all the way to when we can deploy them in an effective manner. I don't know about you, but I know I don't want somebody that their first day on the job left alone and all of a sudden we have to have an evacuation. Now, the three of us, we know what to do in an evacuation. We don't go into any building without knowing where our exits are and understanding the paths of travel and all of those things that come from what I talked about earlier, a career's worth of experience in a wide variety of buildings and environments. And you can imagine if you were one of my three sons, what you had to listen to before you went to a concert or a special event. Like don't get in the pit. Don't get in the middle. Use your situational awareness. What's that? That's your gut that tells you, hey, something's not right. Go to the edge until you can determine whether that's an issue or not. All of those kinds of things. I mean, I would think my boys hated growing up with me.
My oldest daughter told me one time, Dad, you ruined concerts for me.
Yeah,
And I'm like, chalk one up for Dad. I'll
that's
take that
exactly
any
right.
day because
Yeah.
you're here, you're alive, and you're safe, which is
That,
great.
and hopefully then you're going to remember that and continue that on to your kids, right? And you
Correct.
think about the changing environment that we face today, and I don't know that I'm prepared. So
It is pretty scary when we take a look at how people behave, how they act, everything around us, and how things are changing. Some for the good, some not necessarily for the good.
right.
We unfortunately had some deadly flooding over the July 4th weekend in Texas. And when we start taking a look at large venues, they have to be ready for certain disasters like that might arise. Do you have any thoughts, any considerations? Matt and I discussed this on one of our first episodes when we looked at the fires in Southern California and how they displaced a lot of people and how venues had to respond, whether it's to become a shelter for people or to move games from one state maybe to another state in order to execute them. Any thoughts that you have about that as one of the things that we start wrapping up the conversation today?
Yeah, I was going to say, how long do we have to go? So I think both of you are aware that I have a significant amount of my practices in safety and security. A significant amount of my time over the years has been sort of leading working groups with IAVM and others with things like SARS and Zika and COVID-19, that type of thing. I work directly with the Red Cross on mega sheltering, and so I have a lot of experience having actually executed those processes myself, both in buildings I ran and on behalf of our international organization. So I think that my first point here, and let's stay with the weather. Let's stay with those rains. Everyone should be cognizant of the fact that weather extremes, and listen, I don't want to be controversial about anything, so I stay away from the words sort of climate change. I don't care what the originating source is. You don't have to be a meteorologist to understand that the nature of our weather has changed, and it has constantly changed over the last 20 years. In the last 5 years, we are seeing more and more extremes, whether it's extreme heat, extreme cold. 5 years ago, is anybody talking about a polar vortex? Like it's a new term in our vernacular, but everybody knows it now. When you look at the flooding, I read an article today that talked about NASA data is now showing that over the course of the last 5 years, significant extremes, meaning when a storm hits, you had your empirical experience told you that this is likely going to be something like this or something like that. There are things happening we have never seen before, at least in recorded history. We have had hurricanes that went from a tropical storm to a Cat 5 within a 24 to 36 hour period. Never seen that before. We had two. Hurricane Ida comes to mind as one of them. We had two just 2 years ago. We've seen lots of rain. We had a flood here in 2010 in Nashville that completely, buried our city with 19 inches of rain. But we've never seen anything like what just happened in Texas, where water rose up to 29 feet in a very, very short period of time. Nobody is prepared for that. So when you start thinking about how do I prepare for these kinds of things, whether it's that extreme heat, that type of thing, it's the idea of not being complacent at any given time, because when you're complacent and not staying completely aware of where you are and what possibly could happen, hopefully these events have showered us with a range of possibilities that says, I can't just be comfortable with how things used to be. I have to take consideration what I'm going to do. And it's a hard thing for us to like, I'm not suggesting that, preppers or that type of thing, but it's a hard thing to think about. Hey, if I got stuck in my house for 3 days without power, what do I have to think about? What do I need to have in the house at any time? What do I have for calories for my family? What do I have for calories for my dog? What do I have for water? What do I do if I don't have power or cell phone? It's interesting. I have a lot of things that maybe other people don't have. Back in 2010, I had a lot of chargers. Every one of my car had a 110 converter to a charger. And so at the end of the day, when that happened, I started loaning them out to my neighbors so they could drive up on the hill behind us and actually make connection with loved ones and that type of thing. So it's just a matter of thinking about what the possibilities are, and we're back to complacency. So there's a lot of good information without having to go deep down a rabbit hole with regard to what you might need to prepare yourself and to make sure that you are taking the responsible actions to protect yourself and your family. How hard is it? How many times have we seen the knuckleheads who are driving through water that covers the exhaust pipe? Right. And, nowhere in driver's ed do they tell you if you're in water that covers the exhaust pipe and you don't keep pressure on the accelerator, then the water will flood the exhaust pipe, back pressure will shut down your engine, and get ready to swim. Right. We don't teach any of those common sense things sort of anymore. Right. So at the end of the day, my only hope for the horrible things that we see that happen here and around the globe is that someone pays at least a modicum of attention that says, hey, if that happened here, would I be in a position to do what I'm expected to do to meet the responsibilities to my family, my friends, my neighbors, my community?
That's a wonderful answer. And it's also a great transition because one of the things that we end Venue Visionaries on a regular basis is we ask a question. And so, based upon what you were talking about just right now, the question that I think might be a worthwhile question to share with the audience is you're talking about information. What is or what are the best sources to get information to help you with the understanding of your environment working in this field? So, Russ, I'll start you off. How would you answer that question in terms of what is or what are some good sources for being the best educated person possible to help your venue?
So you asked the best person possible. I am a voracious reader, and I rely on connection. And I'll give you an example. I was connected to Sunny Westcott, who is a former Air Force meteorologist, and I think she's the chief meteorologist of CISA DHS right now. And she is the scariest person I've ever met. So she doesn't look at weather to tell you, hey, it's humid and it might rain. She looks at how does barometric pressure affect behavior? How does it affect how does heat affect building materials? And I'm a member of a working group with her called X Wing, and every single day she scares me with information. But I had to go out and find her. I had to be open to understanding. That means that every day I have to read and keep up to speed with what's going on in my core business. But the truth of the matter is I don't find public assembly facility management to be terribly innovative. Where I look for information is I look at hospitals 24/7 with more complex systems, vacuum, oxygen, all of that. I look at commercial real estate. I look at large scale manufacturing, IRS buildings. I look at I like healthcare overall. I look at airports, again, 24/7, methods and materials. And each one of those contexts are a city in and of themselves. That means everything that's happening in your and my community today is most likely happening at one point today or another in the Nashville airport. Meaning you have to have a wide enough net to look for information in a wide variety of sources. I subscribe to everything. I read 30 to 50 publications a day. That means I don't read them from beginning to end. I'm looking for keywords. I'm looking for repetitive issues with regard to strategies and issues that are going on, and then I might take a deeper dive to go down and see what's going on. Because I'm so invested in weather, is where I saw the NASA article on what's happening with regard to extreme weather and many other things like that. I think you have to start with, where do you get your information today? I'm a member of a lot of organizations, as I'm sure the two of you are, whether it's SMA or IAVM or IIFX or NCS4 or whatever set of letters and numbers that you want to put together. And they all have value. Do they all have value all the time? No. But in terms of building your collective foundation of information and then targeting where to go when something new crops up, I also don't look domestically. I look worldwide because I believe the things that are happening in Europe and Australasia and other parts of the world are are could be training grounds for the kinds of things, particularly in a security environment, that might be coming here. I'll give you another example. I mean, I look at I did a lot of work in Australia in the late 90s, early 2000s. And Australia, while it's a country about the same size as the US, they don't have the resources we have. We're pretty arrogant with our resources. We pour water down the drain, we throw things out, they half baked. They have for a long time recognized that they have to do things differently. They have to do them better, more economically, more sustainably. So in Australia, for example, there's no new building that doesn't have a gray water system. You'd be hard pressed to find a gray water system or a non-potable water. It could be used for landscaping or flushing toilets or any of those kinds of things. They also don't air condition the way we do. They don't air condition from the top down. They air condition from the bottom up, which creates an inversion layer, which means there's about at least a third to half of the space within any given room that doesn't require energy to actually modify the temperature, right? So it's just being open to understanding what you're looking at and me having a lifetime commitment to saying why. When I walked in my first arena in Australia and I saw that the air conditioning was coming from underneath the seats, I wish it was that sophisticated. I was more like, what are those holes? And then somebody took me down and showed me that. Then I started thinking, well, wait a second. Well, why don't we do that? And then I came back here and I'm talking to our MEP engineers and that type of thing. And why don't we do that? And it's, well, mostly because we have at that time enough energy. We have enough. This is how we've always done it. We keep going forward. We are now starting to see changes in terms of how we do that forward. So there's no one magic deal, but with the internet, you have access to like an answer to every question. And I know this is an AI deal, and I'm not the right person to be talking about AI. Just look at me. I have to brute force everything to not fall behind. But I can tell you I'm sophisticated enough in AI now that is actually allowing me to go deeper and wider with regard to the information I get on a daily basis. And I can scan through that. I can file it or hold it. I can move it. You guys are probably aware I have 14 industry distribution letters that I send out on a fairly regular basis, basically saying, here, I don't focus on what's in mainstream media. I'm saying, hey, here are things that there's enough of this happening that it tells me this is a forward or leading edge to something that may become a trend in the future. And I want the people who rely on me to think, hey, I now have a vehicle and I have some awareness so I can do whatever I need to do to make sure I meet my obligations. just start looking. You will be surprised what you find.
Matt, any follow-up to that? Because that was pretty
I tell you,
comprehensive.
I'll give you three quick things, and two of them Russ already hit on. Read, become informed. There's no excuse not to in this day and age. Like Russ said, there's so much information out there. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've been reading something for pleasure, and sometime later on down the line that it wasn't pleasure anymore. I had some useful knowledge in my head that I probably didn't realize where I got that became useful. The other thing he talked about was associations. Uh, I always say when something happens at Oriole Park, there's a lot of times I don't know the answer, but there's somebody out there who does. And it's just a matter of picking up the phone. And I'm always shocked and surprised that some people just seem they don't want to do that. But there's so many people in our industry willing to help you who have the expertise. For goodness sakes, go out and get their knowledge because they're there. Their resources waiting for you. And I think the last thing, and for managers and supervisors, is to also look to your line workers as well. I can't tell you how many great ideas or how many issues these save me from stepping in by saying, "Hey, Matt, you may want to do this. Keep your horizons open above you, to your sides, and below you too, because good ideas can come from anywhere."
Matt, I concur. I can't tell you how many people think that because they have an advanced position that they know what the line staff knows. They have their shoes on the ground each and every day. They're not out there to think great thoughts, and it's important to listen to or have a vehicle, a system with which to listen to them, and take it on board and take action. But there's a caveat here. You got to be really careful. If you say to somebody, "I want to hear what you have to say," and when they try to share something with you, if you don't respect that, then they will never share anything with you again. And it doesn't matter how young or old you are. It just means that they no longer have a reason to trust you. And if they don't trust you in that, they're not going to trust you in other areas. So you have to think long and hard about what you're going to open yourself up to. When you say, "I want to hear," you have to be prepared to actually listen.
So to summarize this, join different associations all over the place. Read periodicals, and they don't have to be just in our space. It could be at Popular Mechanics. It could be here, there, wherever it might be. You can always learn and listen. As my mom said, God gave us two ears and one mouth. Use it in that proportion. And the more you listen, the more you're going to find solutions and find strategies that might be helpful for you. I know this has been a longer venue Visionaries, but we had a great presentation by Russ of some wonderful concepts and ideas. And so I want to thank you for spending some time with us. You're the first guest that we've had on Venue Visionaries, and you've given a vision for a lot of people in terms of what might help them do their job a little more effectively. And so I appreciate that. Thank
Hopefully
you so
you'll ask
much.
me back and we can talk about, lots of other things because there's a great deal more to talk about.
Most
For
definitely.
sure.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. And I'm Gil,
Now, Matt.
and you're Russ. And so thank you so much, everyone, and have a great experience out there, and be safe out there. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.